My former rector at the Ghana Institute of Journalism, Dr. Wilberforce Dzisah, is my guest. The reason we have him in studio is that in 2018, he was removed as rector of the institute. Doc, you're welcome to Point Blank on Eyewitness News.
Thank you very much, Umaru.
How are you doing?
Very well.
It's good to see you. I'm just looking at the story as published on Graphic Online in 2018 by Enoch Dafab Frimpong, and it says, dismissed GIJ Rector Dzisah serves notice to go to court. The story says the dismissed rector of the Ghana Institute of Journalism, Dr. Wilberforce Dzisah, has indicated his readiness to challenge the decision of the governing council in court. Dr. Dzisah, who was to complete his 4-year tenure in August 2018, was presented with a letter dated Friday, March 23, 2018, announcing the termination of his appointment. He was initially ordered to proceed on leave over alleged infractions in procurement practices and allegations of academic integrity in December 2017. And then you have been quoted here saying that you do not agree with what has happened. Meanwhile, the registrar of the school, Mr. Perry Ofosu, who was ordered by the council to also proceed on leave, has been demoted. Mr. Ofosu is expected to resume work as deputy registrar and report to his assistant, Mrs. Patience Soa, who has been made acting registrar. Already, acting deputy rector, Dr. Ebo Afo, has been removed and directed to revert to his previous position as the head of journalism department. So this is when and how you decided to go to court. Share with us more on how this came about.
Thanks to your listeners, Umaru. Happy to meet you. It's been a while. It all started sometime around September, October 2017, when the governing council was constituted, led by Professor Ansu Treme, with others as Margaret Amokohini, Dr. Kweku Roxon, and others from institutional reps from Media Commission, or that's the Media Commission. It's supposed to be GJA, but there were a lot of things that happened that I wouldn't have the time to go into this evening.
Mm-hmm.
When a council was put in place, the first thing they did was to call for a meeting. We had, as rector, we had asked that we hold an emergency meeting because there were pending students who were supposed to graduate. And because of the delay in the constitution of the council, there was this agitation even among those students who were actually supposed to graduate. So we asked that once the council was put in place, we should quickly deal with that. And that happened. Then the normal general ordinary meeting of the board or the council was to take place in October. At that meeting, we had a letter from the chairman of the council, Professor Ansu Treme, who stated that they would like to meet senior members, senior staff, and junior staff. And so when they came for the meeting, they then stated that in terms of meeting the senior members, if you go by the GIJ statutes, I am the chairman of convocation, and said I wouldn't be part of that meeting. The registrar would not be part of the meeting, and my deputy, then the acting deputy rector, Dr. Abu will also not be part of the meeting. I found that very curious, but decided, well, there is no point. Since they want to interact with them, that is fine. So they spent the whole day meeting all these groups. The outcome of that, based on what some of the staff told me, was that they were told that they should put their grievances about what management is doing on paper and present it to them. The next meeting was sometime in December, around between 16 and 18 December.
2017.
2017. And at that meeting, after I presented my report, where I told them that we have pending projects to complete, particularly the new site at North Jolu, where through some financial models that I developed. We were using some IGF to actually keep the project ongoing, got to about 85% completion rate. And that the contractors were on our neck because Get Fund was not meeting their obligations to us. So we normally pre-finance and then they will reimburse. So I told the council that as at the time that we had that first official meeting, I said, I had actually managed to accumulate about 7.8 million Ghana cedis in the GIJ account, and that we could use it if council actually agreed that we could use it to even complete that structure so that we can put it to use. At the tail end of the meeting was the chairman who now said he had received petitions from some staff and that they would like to set up a committee to go into those petitions. So it'd be good for me to take some leave, annual leave. And I said, if you have received petitions, in the first place, the best management and administrative practice for a so-called council would be first to meet management. This did not take place. So already I knew that the nights were out. Something fishy was going on. I do not want to go into certain details because luckily the court has vindicated me. So I said, if somebody alleges, you must give me also the opportunity. Because the Latin word primus inter, there must be the audiorum partem rule must apply. And said, well, they will form a committee or rather. So I knew that their minds were made up. So we agreed that I would take some 3 weeks leave or 1 month leave and then return because we're going into the Christmas festivities. And so I will return by the end of January. Whilst on leave, they wrote that I should meet an investigative body headed by Dr. Margaret Amakohene. I learned he's now being promoted to an associate professor, proud to her retirement. So I then informed my lawyers because having said that petitions written against me, because I had earlier received on March 2017, I had received a call from the then Minister of Education, Dr. Matthew Puku Prempre, claiming that he had received some calls that I was engaging in some procurement activities. And I said, where? GIJ is a very small place. And luckily you happen to be an old student, an alumnus of the school. So what kind of procurement and at what is the magnitude of the kind of procurement that maybe he probably was talking about? So I just brushed it aside. Then later I got an anonymous petition brought that I should respond from the Ministry of Education, that I should respond within 48 hours. So I responded. That was the end of the matter. I have not heard from the ministry. I had traveled to the University of Westminster, where I did my former school, where I actually did my PhD, to make an arrangement for a kind of memorandum of understanding between, our GIJ and Westminster to ensure that some of our staff could take advantage of the PhD program so that we can upgrade staff. And when I went, I was there, particularly on trying to ensure that one of our lecturers, senior members, gets admission. Those very people were here planting stories in the newspapers, anonymous stories, that I had taken money and traveled and all that. So that's just part of. So I knew that there was a small group within that's trying to, maybe I don't know whether for partisan interests or for their own, maybe some other interests that I cannot actually explain. So that's the nature of things at the time.
So when were you formally asked to leave, and what was the condition? Were you sacked or you were suspended?
To put this in perspective, I made an investigative body. I have informed my lawyer, Professor Raymond Atuguba, and so he came over with one of his junior partners. So we went for the meeting, and to our surprise, Margaret Mokweni said, this is an in-house matter, and that she wasn't going to allow my lawyers to sit in that meeting. After some back and forth, I told my lawyers to go and that I would sit in. So I sat in, and we spent about 45 minutes. And as I speak to you, they never asked a single question about any procurement infraction.
What did they ask about?
Issues about staff, why somebody, for example, was not given the opportunity to go and do a PhD, funded to do a PhD. And this particular lecturer had applied to a university. Normally, when you apply, we write to NCT or National Accreditation Board then to verify whether the school is accredited. And they wrote back to say that this school was not accredited. So we informed the lecturer concerned about this. But then these were the questions that they were asking. I see probably you have something against it. The second one was what I was talking about. That particular lecturer was the one that I was in Westminster. He had applied severally, and he was not given admission. And I had to go in there, talk to the people, because I've been there, and told them that we were going to back him to do it. So on the basis of that, the dean assured me, and within the period that I was there, they had prepared and granted him the admission. But he's one of the people who were sitting down here writing anonymous letters.
So these were the issues that were put to you by this
and the committee.
So after that, did they come up with a report, a finding, and ask you to comment on it or anything? Did they find you culpable in any way?
Nothing. I was supposed to report back to work on the 1st of February. And so, after that charade of a meeting, so-called investigative meeting, they then quickly met, the council met, I think, on the eve of my return to work, and then quickly said that my annual leave, they've granted me annual leave to go for about 3 months. That's 60 days. That's 60 days.
Okay, then that'll be 2 months.
Whilst they have not concluded their investigations. So by my calculation, I will have to return to work first week in April. Mm-hmm. So by 23rd, that's 23rd, it was a Friday, 23rd of March, I got a letter from the institute saying that my appointment has been terminated and that I'll be paid 3 months in lieu of my termination notice.
And this was signed by who?
By
Professor
Ansu
Treme.
There was the registrar, the acting registrar, who signed the letter that she was directed to do so. So when I got a letter, I duly informed my lawyers about it because, one, I was appointed for a fixed term of 4 years. The statute is very clear on that. If you look at the GIJ statutes, 6.2 is very clear on that. And even my appointment letter states clearly that shall be for 4 years, renewable, that one is based on satisfactory performance.
And the law does not grant that if there's any error or problem in the middle that you can be removed, or there's a procedure, which procedure was not followed?
If you look at even the conditions of service for senior members, it even states that to remove a senior member, you have to give the person 6 months notice. So,
and you are above senior because you are rector.
I am the rector. I'm a senior member first and foremost from a faculty. Before the advert came, I was a deputy rector. And then I applied, and then I was successful and appointed as rector.
So that's how you became rector?
That was how I became rector.
You applied?
I applied. And it was advertised. And I went and made a
I remember you were at the time vice rector to Mr. Newton.
Yes.
And then he retired. So you advertised and you were chosen. So that's how you became. So the removal procedure was not followed?
Not followed at all. complete breach of the statutes and even the Act 717 established the GIJ. So I looked at it and I decided, consulted my lawyers and said, look, we have to take action on this. Then the funny part was that 1 week notice, flagrant violation and breach of the laws of this country. Then I said, well, I will seek redress in court. Because in April, they had paid salary into my account. Because of this, I did not even touch it. First week in May, I had a call from my banker saying they had express instruction from my employer to return the money to chest. So even the issue of the 3 months salary in lieu of notice was not honored. So we proceeded by lawyers, sent them a demand notice to reverse whatever decision they had taken. They did not even dignify the demand notice to them to reverse the decision.
When you went to court, did they appear to put in a response? Did they argue at their case, or they just left you to go alone?
They responded. So they filed a witness statement signed by the chairman of council, Professor Sutrame.
And they appeared and gave testimony?
They appeared. I went through the cross-examination by their lawyer. And then when I was done, it took almost 2 years for their lawyer to finish the cross-examination, because if you look at their statement, their defense witness statement, you can see clearly that they just came to court to fish for information. They are not standing on any solid ground. On the basis of that, when I had finished my testimony before the court in terms of my cross-examination, Professor Sutrame entered the dock. Our lawyers spent technically just about 2.5 days to do their cross-examination. It was glaring. He was asked in open court if he had any report indicting the plaintiff, that's me. Mm-hmm. And the first response was, well, there was some report, but that was not no, there was not. They said, do you have any report before this court indicting the plaintiff? No. So that the council just decided, for the sake of the institute, they have decided that we should separate. So it's not based on any legal reasoning, no law, and a flagrant violation and breach of the statutes and Act 717.
That was his defense. His defense was that Jesus wanted to get rid of you.
Yes, they have decided to separate. He was using the word separate.
And they removed you that way.
I was removed.
So how long did this court case last for?
We initiated the action sometime in May 2018. It went before, technically, there was first judge was a lady judge who was transferred. And the second one, just as we were about, after they've gone through the case management, she was also transferred.
So since 2018 till now?
Till now.
And when did you get judgment?
I got judgment Wednesday, 22nd February.
Last week, Wednesday. Okay, so we need to go, but key things that the judgment said. Did he say that your position be reversed, or you didn't ask for your position to be reversed?
I had 5 months at the time to complete my first term. So when we were going to court, we did not go for reinstatement.
So you were saying that what should be given to you by the... I think I saw somewhere that you asked for 25 million cedis.
That was the demand notice.
Okay.
But then when we went to court, the release, the greater part of my release were actually granted by the court.
Key ones being what?
First and foremost, you pay me 5 months salary, all the allowances that are due me, and that is for 5 years. So you pay that at the current prevailing bank rate, which I believe is around 25%. Mm-hmm. So you pay that. You pay me, I was acting director of the graduate school from 2013, if you recall, if you know the history of the graduate school that I brought into fruition and actually steered it.
So pay you for that?
Then pay me for that for 2013 to 2017 and pay interest at the current prevailing from the time of termination till date. That is the time of the judgment. That is also to be done. Mm-hmm. And then there was some responsibility, allowances that were due me, which were withheld because I don't know for whatever reason. Our research and book allowance was withheld, and a few other allowances that were withheld. So all those things,
the court said all these should be paid.
Should be paid to me.
There was also
interest.
a fine to the school itself.
25,000 Ghana cedis.
So that's not to you, that's to the state.
No, it comes to me because that's part of the legal costs.
Okay, so you're supposed to pay 25,000 cedis.
Yes, I would take that one as well.
Legal cost.
And then they also pay me 6 months for wrongful termination as well. 6 months. The court also granted me 6 months salary.
This is what the judge said.
Yes.
It's final, unless they appeal. Have they appealed?
I wouldn't. I'm not aware of that yet.
You've not been told about
I'm not aware. But I'm ready. If they want to go and appeal, I'm ready. I've gone the long haul already.
Why do you think you were removed then if there was no reason? Was it political or was it something else?
I am restrained on the basis that what I saw was that, for example, I will say it here, that, for example, if you cannot connect politics, then there must be something else. For example, Dr. Kweku Roxon was a former rector, acting rector of GIJ. He was on retirement. He had applied to us to help fund his PhD whilst he was on retirement. I was at UPSA. And he was actually trying to use the back door to get an officer of the school to actually give him a letter to take to get funding. And then this came to us and said, look, you should write formally. You're on retirement. How are we going to justify this before auditors? We can't do that. And there were a few other things that I'm sure that are appropriate, that when I have time, some of these things, we'll put them out.
You were removed not alone. You were removed alongside Dr. Ebuafo, who was vice rector. He taught me print journalism. Perry Ofosu was registrar. He was also sacked. Not sacked, he was demoted. Did they also join you in court?
They didn't.
So you went alone?
Yes, but I don't know what plans they have. But for example, if you look at the illegality, show of power and political power, maybe because they were appointed by the political authority, but that by their own power, but kind of arrogance with which Perry Ofosu was appointed by virtue of an advert as a registrar. So it was appointment, not promotion. On what basis are you demoting him? You have not cited any reason for doing that. And I thought that was also unlawful.
We need to go, but what lesson do you think should be learned from this in terms of people who serve in public office like yourselves who get removed? I mean, GIJ has a history. I came to GIJ in 2008, but before then I knew that David Newton had been removed in 2001 as rector. Kweku Roxon was acting throughout. I was admitted under Kweku Roxon. And when the MPP lost power, and NDC came in 2009, I remember Newton was brought back and Kweku Roxon went back to the staff common room. In fact, we were told that GIJ was a political institution. Do you agree? And what do you think should be done about this?
Educational institutions are not political battle zones. Universities are governed by statutes, and we should keep politics out of our educational institutions. I disagree completely, but I just want to say to your listeners that in all these, I've always remembered one particular Bible biblical verse, Psalm 91, 1-3. If you allow me to say that, and for those who stood by me, particularly my wife, my siblings, my family, close friends, well-wishers, I said they should always remember that he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High, who abides in the shadow of the Almighty, will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust, for he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence, and that he will cover you with his pinions. I stood by that. The Lord heard my petitions, as you can find in Psalm 20, verse 5. In that, at the end, victory was my portion.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, and have a good night, Doc.
Thank you, too.